Hey, I'm Angela. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how we have planned high school as homeschoolers. So I don't know about you, but when I was coming up on the high school years with my daughter, who's my oldest, I heard a lot of things like planning high school is really challenging and, oh, we just went with an umbrella school that told us what to do because I didn't want to mess with all that. But I happen to like challenges, and I also like to have control over what my kids are supposed to learn and base it on their interests. So that really wasn't going to work for me. I did look at the umbrella schools. Here in Tennessee, we have to have an umbrella school anyways, have to be registered with that or as an independent school, and we use an umbrella school anyway. But I decided to use an umbrella school that doesn't have a lot of requirements and is really hands-off because I like the independence. I did a lot of research, of course. I know if you're a homeschooler, you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's a lot to dig into. So I did a lot of digging, and what I came up with were some really old resources, kind of. So I bought a book that was out of print, and I ended up using that to kind of help me figure out, what even is this about? Like, why is it so challenging in the first place? Like, what's so daunting about it? That's really what I was trying to figure out. Like, why should I be scared to homeschool high school? We actually sat down, and my daughter and I, we talked about, well, what are your goals? Like, what is your goal after high school? What do you want to aim for? Because, without an aim, it's kind of hard to figure out what you need to do. Like, what even is your purpose in what you're doing now? So, of course, the first thing is pray. So pray and ask God, not just like, I don't know, when I was in high school, it was like, well, what do you want to do? And what career do you want? What college do you want to go to? But now, it seems to me at least, there's a lot more awareness of you don't have to go to college, and you don't have to have a traditional career. There's so many options, maybe too many options actually, but, and I think that can make it hard as well. So, but if you pray, and the Bible says that God knows the plans He has for you in Jeremiah 29:11. So why don't we pray first? That's what my daughter and I were doing. Pray first and ask God, well, what plans do you have for me? What do you want me to do? What should my aim be? And then based on that, then going through, and we actually were looking at, of course, what are your interests? What are some things you could see yourself doing? And then, I was sharing like, well, here's this job and here's this job, because, she doesn't know what all these jobs are. She hasn't been exposed to all that or had to explore those options before. And even like, do you want a family? Do you want to be a working mom or a homemaker full-time? Do you want to homeschool? Like, all these things, like where do you see yourself versus just, well, what do you want to major in college? So I think I love that about homeschooling, and maybe this is true in schools these days. I don't know, because we're not in that environment anymore. So just based on my experience when I was in high school, that's how I remember it being, is where do you want to go to college? What do you want to major in? Those were kind of the main things you were aiming for. So I really love that now I have grown in awareness of, well, there's trade schools, there's just entrepreneurship, there's homemaking as a career, and of course there's still the traditional college path, but I love that there's so many options. So when we talked about that, my daughter really wasn't sure. I mean, she was 13 and 14, and we started talking about it seriously as I was looking at how are we going to plan homeschooling high school. Of course, I love also homeschooling because you really get to know your kids' interests and their strengths on so many different levels, because you're with them all the time, you're teaching them, you're working beside them. This year, I did not do this before we started high school, and now she's a 10th grader this year. But this year, she has written out like, what are your goals in 20 years? Where do you see yourself in 20 years? And then we've just backed it up. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 1 year? like family, work, where you want to live, what's your finances look like. Like, just let's have the future in mind and not just the here and now. Well, this sounds fun, or, just college, the end, right? So that's what we have done this year to really help broaden the vision even a little bit more. From there, from thinking about interests, kind of goals, I looked at, what are the Tennessee requirements for high school? Like, what do you need to graduate? So I looked at that. I just got online with the education website and was able to see this is what's required to graduate with a high school diploma in Tennessee. Now, as a homeschooler, I don't necessarily need that because I'm not going to be getting a Tennessee high school diploma for her. But it was just good to kind of have those guidelines in my mind of how many credits of each subject were required in Tennessee. So that was one thing I started with. And then another thing was I looked at the umbrella schools that actually have their own diploma and their own requirements. And in looking at that and the Tennessee requirements, I noticed, wow, like there's a lot of credits required and a lot of really generic, general courses that it's like, she's not going to use this. Like, this isn't relevant to her. I'm not against, broadening, having a nice rounded education, but a lot of this was like, no, like she does not need this. This is not her. This is not her strength, and this will not grow her as a person and where she is needing to be in her purpose. So that's when I then went to some colleges that we were thinking about she might want to go to. Not pushing that in any way, shape, or form. If we end up going that path, fine, but maybe not. So, but I did look at like admissions. So I just went to the admission page of like a few local colleges. I went to one that's a private college that my husband and I both went to and graduated from, and looked at the requirements for that. What I saw was a huge difference in what was required to graduate from high school based on both like the umbrella school. I actually looked at the private school where Chris and I went as well, just to see what did we even have to do to graduate high school. So I looked at that and the Tennessee requirements as well. And when I did those compared to the admissions for the college we went to, we did a lot more in high school than we had to get into that college. So that was really interesting to me. It was like, wow, that was a lot of busy work, yeah. So anyway, but not that busy is bad, busy is good, but it's just that for high school, when you're in high school with a bunch of other people with a lot of different goals, they have to keep it really broad and generic so that whatever you decide to do, you should have everything taken care of. But as homeschoolers, we don't have to do that. So looking at this college and seeing, okay, well, this is all we need. If you wanted to go to this college, I kind of took that into consideration and laid it out over the course of 4 years of, well, if we plugged in these classes, needed to get into this college, then what would that look like? And what kind of time would that take up? And what space do you have left to do things, that you're interested in? So obviously those were just generic classes, like the math and the how many sciences and how many histories and what kind of history. And then I can't remember, I think it did not have like a Bible or religious requirement, even though it is a religious school, but it is an optional elective. So, and then how many electives were needed, foreign languages. So all of those things. And then I also looked at some other colleges that have some things she could be interested in majoring in, and just comparing their admissions requirements, like what test scores, if they need like the ACT, or what's required to apply, and if they need like what they need for their transcripts, and for homeschoolers, if they need a portfolio, which it looks like, yes, a portfolio is needed for college admissions. So those are what I looked at there. Now, all that being said, like I said before, I don't know if she will go to college, but we are going to keep in mind, those admissions things in planning out her four-year high school program, also with an open mind that this might not even be something that she ends up doing. So in addition to all those things, of course, going with some interest-based things. So she really enjoys music. So she is taking a choir class from a local tutorial. And so that's been really good. She did that last year as well. So those are some things that then we're adding in electives around kind of the basics of what she needs based on the specific place she might go, instead of just, let's do all this generic stuff and then it's just like a regular going to a public high school, not just like, but I mean the same courses would be done. So actually what I did is I broke up all of those classes. Now I'm going to show you my notes that I started with, and these were just copies I made out of that book I bought that they had blank forms in there just to copy on a copying machine. So this looks a little scribbly because, you know, it is. So I just split up like all of the courses, and I'm not going to show you like everything, but I just put in like how many Englishes, the math, the social studies and history, and like the science and all those things. And I just kind of split it up over what years we would be doing those things. I always write in pencil because I love to erase and go and change things around based on how much we actually decide to do or not do that year. And then instead of using that this year, I went ahead and made myself a high school planner. So last year I used that I just showed you, the penciled in thing, and I actually had an hourly tracker that I copied out of the book that had like where you put the log of what you do and then you check off how many hours. Now we did that for things like we did some home ec, some health and nutrition, history. We did it for that. I think those were the main things that we used the hourly check off. So you may already know this, but if you don't, you can use a pre-made curriculum for high school. And then if you do, it'll say like it counts for, like if it's for a full year course, it counts for 1 credit. And if it's like a semester course, it counts for like a half a credit. So that's basically all it is. So 1 credit is like 180 days of 50 minutes a day. That's what 1 credit is. And so a half a credit is 90 days at 50 minutes per day. And that much time counts as a half credit. So if you're using a pre-made textbook, that's pretty much all mapped out for you. So if you go through and you finish that textbook, you get that required amount of time, you get that credit without having to log how many hours you did. But if you do what we did on some of the courses and you want to tailor them and use like biographies and books from the library and a little of this and a little of that, then you can just go and log on your sheet. And I'll show you that I made my own version of that. And we actually can log it here where we put like the date it was done, and that can, you know, even be a range, and then the name of or description of what it was. And then this I have to sign, like put my initials to check off, you know, that I've checked that she has done it or we've approved it. And then you just check off how many hours as you get them done. So that's how we record things, like mainly history. PE is another one that we do an hourly log because I create our own PE program. So that's what we do for a lot of those things that I don't necessarily want to use a textbook. Now you could use textbooks for everything. That'd be totally fine. It's laid out for you. But I like to really get things specific and more relevant to like what's going on in today's culture and society, if you will, especially like in light of history subjects. So that I really like to tailor and then just record and log it with the hours. So all that being said, like there is really a challenge with homeschooling high school because I mean, you're helping them plan their life, and it's getting more real at this point. So yeah, it's challenging, and it's a little bit, it's humbling to be helping shape somebody's future like that. But I mean, that's what parenting is, right? So it's really also very cool and exciting to start to really see them blossom and develop, and see kind of the fruits of your labor start to come a little bit, maybe not totally on everything, but there's definitely some glimmers of, oh wow, you're turning into a really cool person, and that's really a lot of fun to see. So hopefully that's helped you guys. If you want to check out, I did make a printable, and I'm happy to share that in my printable shop. So I'm just going to link that below in the description. But basically, I've got now where it's like hopes and dreams. And like I said, the goal setting in 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, and 1 year. Then I've got like a school comparison sheet. This is something I didn't have last year when I was planning all 4 years of high school. And so, but this is fun because you can write in the school, trade school, college, or even any other kind of classes or anything they want to get into, and see, well, here's what's required to get into this school. And that way you have it kind of all laid out. I even have on there like the cost of everything you can write in at the bottom. And then this is kind of the mainstay where you can put in all 4 years. And this is exactly what I did. I put in all 4 years and what they're going to take each year as far as the credits. Now, what I did before I had made this is I just went into Pages and I typed up like all 4 years, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4 of high school. And I wrote in like the classes. And as I was pulling together curriculum for the first year, of course, I was seeing all this other curriculum as well for high school overall. So I just started plugging in, okay, well, we know we need a US history and a world history and a government economics. So as I was looking at all of those things, even if we weren't going to need it last year, her freshman year, then I would say, well, this looks like a good program. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in for junior year to come back and do like the world history or the government economics for senior year, if I thought it looked like a really good curriculum. And I just put it in, like I made a list. And you could do that on here too, where it's like you're making your list, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and just pencil that in for the next year. That way I can remind myself for the next year to come back and check out this curriculum and see if that's something that we want to use now for this coming year. So I basically laid out all 4 years of high school. I planned like all the curriculum, not in super huge detail, you know, as it got farther down, but this year when I came back and I had all that laid out already, it was really easy. Like I even left myself like just, we might do this, 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 or this. Like I had like bulleted points where it's like, I'm not sure which one I'm going to use, but these are the ones I'm interested in. But then I could go through and research that instead of having to start completely from scratch. Because in the past, like elementary and middle school, I haven't done that. And I ended up being like, I don't even remember what I was looking at or where did I put that sticky note. You know, I have sticky notes everywhere. I love sticky notes, but then it's hard to try to figure out, well, wait, what was I even thinking? What direction were we going to go? So I really love like leaving myself a trail of this is my direction. So again, it's like having those goals, like this is all leading us to this point. This is our goal. This is our path. And this is how we're going to get there, having it mapped out for you. So then I've got like freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. And you can just write them in, write the curriculum in that you're thinking of using or that you finally decided to use. And then just put in how many credits that's going to be worth with the totals at the bottom, and then the grade that they get at the end of the year, or you can do it like semester and then final grade. So these are things that can actually go in their portfolio. So that'll be really nice. I think that we'll have this all laid out and I can just take that and put it in her portfolio. And then if she wants to get into college or trade school, that she can just put that there with everything. Same with the coursework logs. So for each class that she's going to be taking, we are going to have like a section of that for like her freshman year, have a coursework log for the classes that we count the hours for. And that way we'll be able to show everything she did. And then I also have just a blank coursework log. So even if there's not enough lines on this one that tracks the hours, then we can still keep going and write in like more things and print out as many of these as we need until we finish with the hours. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that doesn't seem too hard, right? It's really just about planning, getting your goals straight. Like, what are you aiming for? Praying for direction, which maybe that's, I don't want to say maybe, that is the biggest thing that makes this simple and doable and not overwhelming, is for prayer, for guidance and support, and to show you what things should I be looking at for my child. So that, I think, was the biggest thing that helps me to stay on track instead of looking at all the things and just be like, okay, I know this is what I should look at. So that keeps it, like I said, it keeps it manageable, not overwhelming. And then once you do that, you know, you can just start diving into the research, keeping your notes really succinct, and then writing out. I loved that I wrote out all 4 years for her, because now in her 10th grade year, it's been just so nice to be like, oh, here's the plan. Like earlier this summer, I was able to sit down and see, well, actually last year I started, you know, I edited as we were going along. I'm like, yeah, I don't like this, what we're doing. I'm gonna edit that and then take that off as a suggested thing for next year, because I already know we don't like that. So I just kept editing like as we went along, and I probably still will, but I've got all 4 years pretty much laid out, and then we'll just add electives as things come up and as her interests change and as her goals kind of solidify more, you know, even like she has really taken to sewing, and she's actually started a YouTube channel because she really would like to have her own sewing business. So I'll link her YouTube channel so you can check that out as well. But that has been really helpful to give her some goals as well. So I liked doing this so much that I actually wrote out my middle schooler and my elementary school son's plans as well, not their high school plan. Well, my middle school one, I did go partway through high school, and then my elementary son, I've just done like the next 4 or 5 years. So it's been just really nice to keep everything succinct and in one place so that I can kind of have a plan already laid out instead of, you know, every year having to start fresh and figure out what we're doing. So it's really just made it a lot easier to have everything in one place. So that's my biggest advice, I think, that I have learned, is to start with the end in mind and pray for direction. So let me know, do you guys homeschool high school? And do you use an umbrella school, or have you found it pretty simple to figure out like classes and credits? Or what has been a challenge for you for planning high school? So thanks for joining me. Hopefully that was inspiring, and please leave me some comments. I love to have a conversation with you, and I'll see you next time.